Don't forget to subscribe. Afterwards, the wisest and most spiritual books from the greatest authors await you every day. And now buckle up, sit back and we'll begin. This book is truly one of the most wise and spiritual books of our time, which will open your eyes to the real personal of this great man. And also after reading it, we guarantee your life will not remain the same. This book has already turned the lives of many thousands of people. We are sure it will happen to you, because in fact Pythagoras was not only a scientist. Pythagoras is one of the messiahs who worked to provide spiritual help to incarnate people in the Mediterranean countries. His main service to humanity was not in his mathematical investigations, known to all high school students nowadays, but in the fact that he had created the perfect spiritual school, and the educational principles laid by him as the basis of teaching in this school should serve as a standard for all future human generations on the earth. In this book, Pythagoras and his divine disciple Carthage talk about the events leading up to the preparation and the establishment of his school. Currently, Pythagoras and Carthage continue their divine service as Holy Spirits, the representatives of the Creator. The materials published here will be valuable for those who just want to start developing themselves, and for those who have already traversed a significant part of the spiritual path. The book can become an excellent textbook for seekers of spiritual perfection. In particular, it emphasizes the ethical component of work and on mastering the art of meditation from the beginner level to the advanced techniques. Lessons of Pythagoras. Written down by Anna Zubkova, under the editorship of Vladimir Antonov, translated by Alexei Dickey. Everyone who received initiation has to shine with the received fire and ignite new light, the light of knowledge and love for the Creator of everything. Pythagoras. Chapter 1. The Captives. This cold night in the Libyan desert seemed endless for both prisoners and their guards. The chief of the Persian had already started to worry that they had gone astray. Finally, the lights of the fire of the huge camp became visible ahead, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. All the captives, except one, were taken to the rest of the slaves captured by the Persian army. What about this Phoenician? Looks like he is a priest, and seems to be important. Where should we bring him? The Persian, with a grim visage and a badly healed scar across his face, scowled and silently waved his hand toward the distant campfire. The new captive was very tall and powerfully built, as if he was an athlete, but not a priest. He had long and thick curly black hair. His simple linen and formerly white robe was torn in several places and had the obvious signs of struggle. The priest Phoenician was brought to the indicated spot. One of the guards, passing him off to the new guards, said, "Here we go, take this Phoenician. He is said to be a mage and a priest. Be careful with him. 6 of us could barely tackle him." With these words he cut the tight ropes, which were bound around the hands of the priest. The Phoenician looked upon the guard with a haughty, contemptuous glance and started to rub his hands, which had become numb under the ropes. 8 people were sitting around a campfire. They were priests, foretellers, astrologers and healers captured in different cities and temples of Egypt, according to the order of Cambyses, the king of Persia. These people should be kept separate and delivered safely to the capital of the Persians. After all, Egypt was not only rich with gold, but it was recognized by the secrets stored by the priests in the temples and pyramids that gave power to this country for thousands of years. Only now the Egyptian empire fell under the military power of the Persian army. So those who held this knowledge represented an especially valuable trophy that should be kept and used in the future. The newly arrived prisoner casted an attentive gaze at his future fellow prisoners from his great height. His gaze only lingered for a few moments on one person whose clothes were very clean and were white, according to the Greek tradition. Then once again, he immersed himself in his thoughts. The very same man who drew the Phoenician's fleeting attention moved over, allowing the Phoenician to have a seat next to the campfire. From the folds of his clothing he took out a piece of bread, wrapped carefully in a clean cloth, and handed it to the Phoenician, then poured water into a bowl The new captive looked again with surprise at that person who willingly shared food with him. It was hard to assume that the captives were well fed. He nodded in appreciation and started to eat. After the meal, the Phoenician asked, "You don't look like an Egyptian. Are you Greek?" "Yes, my name is Pythagoras, and I am Hamilcar from Carthage." The Phoenician introduced himself. "What brought you to Egypt?" "I studied in Memphis. The priests still let you receive initiations, even though you were a foreigner?" Lo and behold, the conversation had ended. The Phoenician was laconic, and he did not join the general conversations. From time to time he casted attentive gazes at the Greek and listened when Pythagoras spoke. The Greek obviously had aroused his interest, unlike the other captives whom he treated with some disregard or even arrogance. The same thing cannot be said about the Greek. Sometimes he was talked to other captives, asking about medicinal herbs and healing techniques. And he listened with interest to their discussions about the planets and the structure of the universe. Usually the conversations were held in the Egyptian language, which all of the captives understood. But Pythagoras was also fluent in other languages, and, when it was necessary, he could easily carry on conversation with his companions in their mother tongue. He could also express himself freely in Persian, which commanded respect even from the guards. Pythagoras didn't talk much and never argued with others. When he was expressing a different point of view, he was laconic and explained something in detail only when someone had shown a keen interest on the subject. He was different, not outwardly but inwardly. He carried inside himself a special state of calm, harmony and goodwill. At first glance, his movements looked like being just smooth, but with a closer look, one could see that they were filled with a special power. Also, his words carried weight. They penetrated down into the depths of the listener's being, as if measuring the depth and purity of the soul. Hamilcar had communicated with the priests of many different temples. He could easily distinguish imaginary greatness from the true strength and power of the soul. But there was something inside of the Greek, something that he had never seen before. It remained a mystery to Hamilcar. Well, there would be enough time to solve it. One day the convoy with the slaves and other Persian trophies stopped to have a rest before the next long passage. The reason for this was the fact that the Persians celebrated the news about the complete victory of King Cambyses and his enthronement to the throne of the pharaohs of Egypt. From that moment on, there would be many more caravans with captured trophies, since Egypt is fully subjugated. Wine was everywhere. Only those guards who remained on duty were sober, and they were fiercely jealous towards the others. Meat was being cooked in the cauldrons, and wildfowl was being roasted on the fire. One of the chief guards of the Persians became kinder on account of being drunk, and he ordered that the special prisoners be better fed. Perhaps they won't be able to reach our destination. Then I will be responsible for them. When this food was offered to the captured priests, Pythagoras was the only person who refused. Amongst all the luxurious food by the standards of the prisoners, he took only a handful of dates and nuts, then went to the side and sat there separately while others partied. He also didn't drink any of the wine. Afterwards, Hamilcar approached Pythagoras and asked, "Do you reject the food that gives you strength? Are these your beliefs? Are you Orphic?" "I accept neither in my thoughts nor in my body the dark force of the murder that comes to a person as a result of eating the bodies of killed animals. Orphics are not the only ones that consider a vegetarian diet as an ethical prerequisite for the development of the soul. Now, there are some sages and their disciples in the countries of the Far East, such as India and China, who follow this as well. Yes, in Greece the Orphics still remember it. In Egypt it was well known too. Some time ago, perhaps the sunset of Egypt began because the highest priests and pharaohs, endowed with unlimited power, had lost the purity of their lives. To drink the blood of fallen enemies or even to eat their flesh in order to gain their power are the customs of barbaric people. You probably heard about such customs. You find it wild, Hamilcar, don't you? Greek, Your way of thinking is interesting, the Phoenician said in response. But then he did not continue the conversation. Pythagoras also did not continue this topic. Chapter 2. Escape. By night, the safeguard of the camp was replaced. Many guards who just entered upon their duty were still under the influence of the feast. Most of the Persians still continued to feast, and many of them had already fallen asleep, plunged into full loss of body consciousness as a result of an excess of wine and food. After all the other captives fell asleep, the Phoenician once again sat beside Pythagoras and spoke quietly. Listen, Greek. Tonight we could escape from captivity. This is a very good opportunity, which might not happen again next time. Don't you want to be free? Are you ready to spend all your life among these docile people as cattle, enslaved by the Persians? You are strong and well built like Apollo. I am like Hercules. You can see my force. Together it will be easier for both of us to escape and to survive in the desert. I have a dagger. If we kill those 2 guards there, then we shall be free. I can see your force, however I see your weakness too, Hamilcar. I don't know what you mean. You can tell me about it after. And now it is a very good time. I know this area, and we will not get lost. Then we could go to your country. I do not want to be a slave of the Persians' king. For many years I studied the wisdom, and I ought not to spend my life in pointless servitude. I know magic. And you have also been captured in the temple. You received the initiations and knowledge, not in order to become a slave. I am free. I am always free everywhere. No one can make me a slave. And you should not run away from your destiny. It will overtake you anyway. It will definitely happen, if not in this life, then in your future life to come. So it is better to meet your fate and to accept that gift which destiny has prepared for you. If you are ready for acceptance, then so many things will open up in front of you. You and I should not run away today. There is another way to gain freedom. You will not be a slave, and I will not be a slave, no matter what they do to our bodies. But there is a difference between us at this moment. You are ready to take someone's life for the sake of your own freedom. And I am not. I do not wish to gain freedom at the cost of someone's life. Meanwhile, I will remain here, and I offer you the same thing. Think about it. You didn't understand me. Such an opportunity, like the one we have today, may not come again for a long time. If you do not want to join me, well, then I will escape alone. If you change your mind, let me know. You still have 2 more hours to think. After all, you will not have to kill the guards. You can just cast a spell on them if you know how to do this, and if killing them bothers you. Think about it. It will be easier for 2 of us to disarm them and escape the chase. You will not be able to escape from your fate, Hamilcar from Carthage. We will see. Goodbye, Greek. See you later, Phoenician. That night Hamilcar escaped. He did not kill the guards. He stunned them with his heavy fist and then grabbed their weapons, but he was not lucky and was noticed by the other guards. When he had almost disappeared, they made a noise and the chase began. The Phoenician fought on his own against many armed Persians. He was seriously wounded. His body was dragged to the fire to show the others how they would punish anyone who dared to run. They were going to kill Hamilcar in front of the others, but Pythagoras interfered. Keep him alive. They will not forgive the death of such a precious priest. He said this not like one of the captives, but as if he was in charge there, but unexpectedly he was obeyed. However, one of the guards tried to argue, but he is so badly wounded that most likely he will die. Or are you going to carry him on your back, Greek? In that case he will not survive after 1 day of the trip. Or do you command to give him a stretcher? He will not die. By the morning he will get better and will be able to walk by himself. The guards looked at the Greek with bewilderment and caution and put the wounded man where he pointed out. They unquestioningly obeyed his instructions, not even understanding why. You were right, Greek. My escape was not successful. The Phoenician endured the pain and was waiting to die with the serenity inherent to those who possess great strength of the soul. You will not die today. I will help you. Pythagoras leaned over the wounded Hamilcar. This was the first time that he performed this kind of healing in practice, but he was sure of what he was told by the gods, that the Phoenician would be able to learn everything that Pythagoras now knew, and the Phoenician would become his companion and friend, so he should not and could not die then. The high priest who had taught Pythagoras told him the legends about how in ancient times sick people had been healed through the use of a magic wand that conducted a sacred power into the patient's body. Pythagoras didn't have any magic tools, but Pythagoras knew from those non-incarnate divine teachers who were completing his studies that the human body itself can be a conductor of the great divine power, and these magical tools are only a manifestation of the degradation of their ability to use the divine power through their bodies themselves as a consciousness, that brightest light, which could now be seen by Pythagoras, who was plunging into the great mergence with the creative power, was ready to pour through his body, excluding any admixture of his own thoughts. Pythagoras let the divine power flow through himself, opening a passage for this power to Hamilcar's body. Then Pythagoras restored the integrity of those energy channels and the organs of Hamilcar's body that had been damaged. The guards observed from far away the incomprehensible actions of the Greek. The next morning, Hamilcar was not only alive, but also able to walk by himself, and many whispered and talked about this. Those who had found out about this event tried not to approach the Greek, just in case. In fact, it appeared that he was a great magician. Chapter 3. About the laws of the whole. The caravan continued on its way. They walked nearby the healed man and the healer. The dusty road, the noise of a huge convoy of slaves and the looted treasures did not even seem to exist for them. They discussed what was really important right now. How were you able to do it? What kind of initiation have you received that allows you to do this? I would never have believed it if I heard about this from others. But I have experienced it myself. I saw you huge and consisting of shining light. In fact, you were similar to the powerful gods. I thought that death had come to me. I saw what becomes open to the soul after death. But now I am alive, and even the marks of mortal injury are not visible. And, despite all of this, why do you choose to remain a captive? Why are you asking these small magicians and healers about medicinal herbs and natural remedies? What do you want? What are your goals? I would like to teach you what I know. And not just you, but those who are able and willing to conize everything that I have conized. Do you want this too? What will you demand in exchange for that? This knowledge is invaluable, and it may be given only as a gift, and only to that person who is worthy of this. You only need to obey, like a disciple who is willing to study not for a few days, but for a long time, for months, and maybe years. And to work on yourself as a soul, which will make the perception of what I can teach you possible. How do you know the secrets that are not known even to the priests of Memphis? I studied there as well. Or did they not share everything with me? I know the secrets from the one who opens them to every worthy person, when this person is ready to encompass them. You asked, what do I want, and what are my goals? I plan to make a stairway of clear and simple steps for the ascension of the soul, from a small human particle of the universe to the unity of the perfect ones with the creative power of the united primordial God. Man is capable of becoming worthy of unity with the Creator. In order to attain this, it is necessary to become similar to the great gods. Immortality can be attained in this way. But the soul has to master a lot in order to attain it. The wisdom cannot be given to a soul that is not ready to encompass it yet. There are very few people who are ready to comprehend it. You could become one of those who will not only realize this divine intention in yourself, but will also help other worthy people in this. I can share with you what I know. However, in order to begin to study, you have to stop considering yourself as a knowledgeable person. I am ready to become your disciple and follow your instructions, Pythagoras. Well, then, let's start right now. From now on, you can try to bring your intentions, thoughts, emotions, and the purposes of the soul into harmony with the intention of the whole, which is slightly open to you already, while you were between life in your body and life out of your body. You have understood that the purpose of the whole life of the soul is to gradually approach the divinity, light all-embracing, love, great wisdom, and primordial power. And I will help you understand the laws of everything existing in the universe on its own path to perfection. While the intentions of a person are not yet pure, this person wanders around in the darkness of false attractions and desires, and the destiny of such a person can be filled with suffering. The things that we see as separated and isolated in the creation, in fact, compose the great unity, the great oneness, if we look at them from the viewpoint of the Creator. This marvelous multidimensional organism complies with the special laws established by the Creator into the foundation of His creation. And those who attain these laws and do not break them are able to live and act in great harmony. It is so because every living creature is the creation of the great Creator, and a particle of a consciousness lives and develops in each one of them, striving for perfection. Every creature here is nothing but a small particle of the great whole and has its own purpose. The laws that were laid down in the existence of the universe function in each creature and through each creature, through its thoughts, the state of the soul, its emotions, and its deeds. These laws also shape the future destiny of each creature regardless of whether this creature knows these laws or not, whether it consciously builds its destiny or floats down the stream of the river of life without making any effort or thinking about why it is here and where its life goes. Only a human being can consciously use these laws by creating a new reality of life for himself or herself and the environment. Even unconsciously, man partially fulfills the laws of the whole. Nevertheless, if he creates disharmony, it affects his future and the future of other creatures, and even everything in the universe. While the soul is small and weak, its influence is insignificant. But when such small and weak souls form human communities, such communities can significantly affect the future of the earth. A person has the opportunity to choose his or her own friends, life goals, and his path through life. A man can use this opportunity to get rid of his vices and passions, to enter into harmony with the whole. Or he can go with the flow of vicious desires and passions that carry him far away from the truth and the light into the whirlpool of life. Many people tend to avoid manifesting their own evil deeds only in front of others. And when they are alone with themselves, they believe that their thoughts and deeds are known only to themselves. But this is not true. Our lives are not a mystery for non-incarnate souls. Even our thoughts are visible to them, and they can perceive our emotions. Moreover, people with coarse emotions attract the souls that have a consonance with them. And then these evil souls manipulate that weak person with pleasure. These evil souls are ready to be the servants for the embodied people who are strong in evil. It is in this way that black mages and sorcerers perform their evil deeds. But what we need is completely different. That's why it is necessary to praise the purity of the soul. When I studied with the priests, I was not able to comprehend for a long time why knowledge was revealed to me by the gods, but it was inaccessible to my earthly teachers. Then the great principle of love and purity of the soul was revealed to me by the gods. Only this principle gives one access to the great knowledge and primordial power. In Egypt there was tradition of laying papyrus next to the bodies of a deceased person during a funeral ceremony. On this papyrus there was a statement that after death there are guards who stop dastardly and insincere souls from reaching the blissful afterlife. These ancient sayings were known to the priests. There is also a well-known legend about a court in the afterlife in which Osiris weighs the purity of souls. Those that are burdened by lies, hatred and criminal desires and deeds do not receive bliss in the afterlife. Of course, this is only an image that is intended to remind all people about what actually has real value in life and about what moves souls into darkness after the death of their bodies, the darkness where hatred finds its victims among those who are similar to it. In that place, fear and cruelty teach those who were cruel and mean during their lives on the earth. In fact, what you give to others always comes back to you. The fruits of human activity that have caused harm to others carry poison in themselves, which make one's human destiny poisonous for many years, and sometimes for many incarnations. Those who create and give love grow in love, multiplying good deeds by this love. And the whole after the death of their bodies gives them a life in a world of harmony among souls similar to them. And in a new incarnation, their destinies are also clean. But the Egyptian priests have not applied those primary principles of the purity of the soul which underlie the harmony of the whole and conform to the laws of life in the universe. They found themselves standing over everybody and everything, and they were wrong. This error has led them in blind pride to their downfall. Purity is initially formed through small steps, through a pure nutrition that excludes murders, through pure thoughts that don't cause any harm to others who live in the creation and develop themselves according to their own destinies, through pure goals with the willingness to help all souls in finding the path to the light, but not with the desire to control others as one's own will desires. I need to tell you about love, which is the main law of the universe. Love connects everything in the creation with its creator. Love is also an omnificent power of the whole. Whoever aligns oneself with the harmony of the whole, develops oneself and grows as a soul in the direction of the purity, truth, love and divinity. Those who do evil deeds manifest themselves only as a grindstone for faceting diamonds of virtue in other people. Evil also is nothing but a shadow that allows one to see the light better. The person who has not accepted the ethical laws cannot develop consciously. Like an animal, he will be developing some of his qualities such as strength, agility, endurance or other qualities that are not very useful. And only afterwards will that person understand for what reason everything was necessary or was not necessary in his present life. He will have to be incarnated more than once in new bodies in order to grow his awareness and the ability to apply the lessons learned from all his victories and defeats. Those who possess magic and have accumulated a lot of power often try to use the divine creative power for the sake of causing harm to others, but such people do not attain this power. Moreover, they lose access to it totally in this incarnation, and often for many lives ahead, even though they do not realize this. Their destiny is sad. Those who perform evil deeds begin the process of self-destruction. This is an immutable law. This applies to individuals as well as to entire countries or nationalities, and even entire civilizations. Everything that acts in contradiction with the universal law of harmony carries in itself the seeds of its own destruction. It is easy to lose everything achieved on the path of self-perfection, and not even notice this, if there is a growth of the personal I in isolation from the supreme goal. In the same way, the Egyptian priests have lost the main purpose. And even before them, the priests of Atlantis had done the same thing. This occurs when the person loses the ability to live with the spiritual heart and begins to make his decisions based only on his individual mind of his personal I. He may think that the gods are approving his actions. He hears obliging voices acknowledging and willingly approving his every thought. Reaching the false power, he looks at people without any love, but he should have been serving and helping them. He considers people to be like trash. Now you have paid your debts yourself, by your own pain, for your readiness to take someone's life, and for your desire to decide the destinies of others. Now you can begin your life in the purity in the sight of the divine consciousness. Hamilcar listened attentively, and a lot of things became clear to him because of his rich experience of communication with the priests of different cults in Libya, Egypt and Phoenicia, which he had seen and known firsthand. Those deadlocks and limitations that barred his own path in search of the truth now found a clear explanation. When he almost lost a connection with his body as a result of injury, he was allowed to see, as if through the sight filled with divine omniscience and justice, his vices that have impeded his further advancement to the supreme goal. He saw himself from outside all his motives and thoughts. From that day on, Hamilcar accepted the need for an ethically pure nutrition and the willingness to maintain the purity of his thoughts, emotions, and energies of his body. And Pythagoras continued to teach him every day, providing new opportunities for perfection. Chapter 4. The Destiny. After the story with Hamilcar, Pythagoras became revered for his art as a healer. The noble Persians began to seek his help. One day, one of the Persian commanders, surrounded by several armed soldiers, approached the place where captive priests were resting on a halt, among whom were Pythagoras and Hamilcar. Hamilcar watched with some trepidation, ready to step in and defend Pythagoras, when soldiers surrounded him. "Do not worry, I am not in danger," Pythagoras assured him. Beside the Persian nobleman who came to Pythagoras, one of his slaves was standing and holding a cage with a falcon. The Persian had started talking. "Look, Greek. I shot this falcon a long time ago and wanted to train it so it could hunt for me, but its wounded wings still did not heal. They say you are a great healer? So show me your skills. Or can you not cure the bird? If it does not heal, then we have to roast it on a spit, as it will be worth nothing." Pythagoras opened the cage. "Be careful, Greek. That thing pecks painfully, sticking its claws ready to escape whenever possible. And then we will have to catch it throughout the entire desert." The Persian laughed. But the falcon came over trustfully onto the hand of Pythagoras. Pythagoras stroked the falcon tenderly and said something to it in Greek. After a few movements of the healing hand, the bird spread its wings confidently and soared into the air. The healed falcon was hovering against the background of the sun in the sky, like giving thanks to his savior. "What have you done? Why did you let it go? It is not of any worth causing evil to anyone. Every life is sacred." In Egypt, Horus the falcon is a symbol of the deity, who is the controller of lives and destinies of all beings. The release of this little winged resident of the desert you can consider as great luck. Involuntarily saving this bird's life can improve your destiny. You would have been seriously injured in the upcoming battle and spent the rest of your days languishing in captivity, but you have the opportunity now to avoid this fate. Did you ask me to heal the bird? I did it. Moreover, I have almost saved you from the miserable fate of a slave. If you will understand me now, then you will be only slightly injured in the upcoming battle, but you will escape captivity. You can thank me for salvation, or curse me for the loss of the falcon. It will be your choice, and this choice will change your life as well. The state of hate or gratitude, and any other state and thoughts of the person, are very important in formation of his own destiny in the near and distant future. The Persian was so surprised by the event that he did not even have any desire to be angry. Can you see the future? Such a small thing like a bird in a cage is capable of affecting my life. The future is easy to see. In fact, people create their own destiny right now. And whoever knows the laws by which everything develops can estimate the opportunities for future development of a person's life as easily as you can calculate your gold coins, adding or subtracting them. Of course, in order to see the destinies, the good knowledge of the past of each soul is required, but whoever sees not only the body, but also the soul can easily recognize its past and its quality and opportunities in the present. That means he can easily foresee the future. The falcon, it was a sort of sign sent by the divine power which warned you of a threatening misfortune. Were you also sent by this force to explain this sign to me? Can you see it? Your understanding has extended. You said it yourself. Which gods do you worship? Greek that give you such abilities? People call the divine power by different names. They usually worship certain symbols of this force, but without understanding whom exactly they worship. They pray about the fulfillment of their own desires about a harvest, rain, family, happiness, love, success, military victory. There are many names of gods that people are serving in the temples of different countries. Nations differ not only in languages, but every human tribe is searching for ways to connect people to that force which controls everything. They are searching for this force through certain images, which they have named the gods of harvest, sky, fire, earth, sun, or various human characteristics from love to hate, and mediators. Priests have gained great profit for themselves from the humiliating worship of those people. It is happening almost everywhere on earth now. Although primordial divine consciousness is called by different names, his power does not change. Even though people worship false gods, divine power does not stop manifesting its laws. This time Pythagoras spoke. Not only for the Persian, he understood that for Hamilcar, his words were much more understandable and important. But the events and circumstances also allowed this Persian to hear what Hamilcar needed to know the most, and other people who were listening to the conversation could learn a bit from this too. Pythagoras continued. The laws remain eternal by which everything exists in the universe. The principles of harmony and love lie at the foundation of everything. If the person does not break the laws of harmony, justice, and kindness, then he will soon be able to recognize how divine power controls the destinies and events. It is not seen in the world of what you call harmony and justice, said the Persian, mockingly. We have conquered half of the world. And you desire that winners do not enjoy the fruits of their victories? You, the winners, will inevitably get the fruits. They won't be as sweet and beautiful as they seem to you now. I warned you, because you are smart and can comprehend what I am saying. In your opinion, what should I do now to avoid misfortunes? The main thing that you've got to understand, the earthly life in the body is not eternal. Earthly riches and power will inevitably end with the life of the body. All the accumulated earthly riches can be suddenly lost by man. The life in the body can be interrupted at any time, and then comes what people call death. The unknown posthumous world scares ignorant people. That is why sacrifices and other rituals were invented to quench this fear, and supposedly to appease the gods. But the rituals and ceremonies don't change anything. And bloody sacrifices only aggravate the darkness, where souls can enter. The posthumous life of man will not be great if his wives, horses, servants are killed and buried with him. Whatever everyone personally deserves, that will inevitably meet him on the other side of this threshold, after leaving the body. Only acts of kindness and justice will improve one's own destiny. Who does not show anger, hatred, and violence, that person frees himself from this in the afterlife. Posthumous existence does not burden those who spent their whole earthly life in kind emotions. How can I thank you, sage, for your lesson? First and foremost by its acceptance. And what about the whole caravan of slaves and valuables which I am obliged to protect? Isn't here a reason for which I can also become a slave in the future? You are right, and this is also. But there are some current circumstances in your life which depend on you, and some of them you cannot change. With regard to the current situation, you can stop the violence and cruelty toward prisoners that are placed under your command. This is in your power. Also, I would like to have the possibility to move freely within the limits of this camp and to heal the prisoners, as well as to teach my disciple this healing art. Well, Greek, I will try to ask this permission for you. The Persian left, accompanied by his guards, who didn't understand anything from this conversation. But then they told everybody how the Greek priest had spoken the bird language, then had cured this bird and let him go. Hamilcar and Pythagoras continued the conversation. Hamilcar asked, "All my life I observed how the strong people prevail over the weak ones, and by doing that they obtain well-being for themselves. Hence is the power nevertheless necessary for life, and it brings success. In the case when the power of the person is directed to virtuous objectives, it helps to successfully approach the perfection. But if it is not, yes, in life often those who are stronger prevail over those who are weaker. This is similar to how the predators overcome their prey. But if the lion's violence over its prey comes naturally for the beast, the violence of some people over others makes the second much worse than predatory animals. After all, the lion does not kill its victim because of its anger, but only with the purpose to get something for food, which will allow it to survive. Humanity has fallen down so low that people kill others for the sake of acquisition of wealth and the imaginary power over the earthly expanse which cannot belong to the kings, no matter how much they are boasting over the conquered lands. Yes, the one who is purposeful possesses the power and can triumph over the weak people, and it seems like a fair wind of fate carries him from one achievement to another. But if the purposes of man belongs to a world of darkness, then those successes are imaginary. They only aggravate the severity and the pain that he will receive as a reward. Such victories sometimes are worse than defeat for future destiny. A lot of terrible and devastating wars still must happen on earth in order to make the people understand how great it is to live in peace. To live in peace and harmony with oneself, without having the internal destructive contradictions between thoughts, desires and emotions. Finding peace and integrity, it is possible for a certain person, no matter what the circumstances surrounding him. But the whole human community can appreciate the advantages of living in harmonious communal development, not in the enmity and violence of some communities over others. You and I, we aim to carry this knowledge to other people. You can see clearly now in the ruined Egypt which has come to its end, the harm of violence of one country over another, of one nation over another, and King Cambyses, who now dared to assign the title of Pharaoh to himself, will get something that he was conquering all his life very soon, an extremely inglorious death and a terrible posthumous existence where he, in particular, will see all his mistakes, and the word Pharaoh in fact means the house of God. The only one worthy to wear this title, who united in himself the divine Trinity, joined the infinite power of united Creator in his universal house, became a manifestation of his creative fire, made his body as an instrument for the manifestation of the divine spirit, the united will of the whole. Cambyses will soon die a non-heroic death, and he will not even have time to enjoy his looted wealth and the power over huge conquered territories. And such a fate befalls all tyrants and the invaders who are blinded by the lust of power, who believe that they will be able to obtain satisfaction from the possession of wealth which they did not create, and the power over countries which they conquered. Their vast empires always start to fall apart from the inside, like a tree rotten in the core, and then, just a gust of wind is enough to make this tree to fall. In the same way the aging body will perish. If this person has failed to create the peace and harmony in oneself, thus the countries, and even whole civilizations perish. Indeed, those people who are under the leadership of tyrants for a war campaign, they also dream to own those things which they will conquer, and those people whom they want to make slaves. Strongly visible is the decay of souls of invaders, when we observe after the conflagration of war those unfortunate people who lost all they had possessed, and now they are pulled as slaves into foreign lands. And then the empires and governors, who wanted to rule, by ignoring the laws of harmony of the whole perish. How important it is to understand that in reality everyone possesses only that which he manifests himself. Once the gods told me, that is actually yours which you can take with you after the death of your body, all the rest does not belong to you. Having all the rest, it is an illusion. Only the experience which was absorbed by the soul, only the love, purity, and wisdom that the soul became, actually has real value. This integral wealth that can be saved and accumulated from one life to another. These are the qualities that should transform into the divine qualities. And then the soul becomes flame of love and acquires the right to merge with the creative power of the whole. Chapter 5. The Freedom. Pythagoras became a father, teacher and friend for Hamilcar. Never before in Hamilcar's life had this happened. He grew up without his father, and he almost did not remember his mother. She belonged to a noble Phoenician family. As a teenager, his mother fell in love with the Nubian prince who became Hamilcar's father. But that reciprocity was short-lived. They were separated by the will of their parents. Hamilcar's mother was married to a noble and wealthy man. She lived a short time after this. After her death, Hamilcar's stepfather sent the child to grow up in the temple. Since then, Hamilcar was always alone. He was for himself, never trusting anyone. He just wanted freedom and power. He wanted to be independent. He even dreamed of becoming a high priest, as it seemed to him that this way he would gain freedom from suppression by other people. He dreamed of a power that would make him invincible. He was not just dreaming, he acquired the strength of body and the power of soul, learning from all those who had been sent into his life as his mentors. However, the powerful and cruel people were not able to teach him to be cruel. He closed himself to all such people, just trying to get only really valuable skills and knowledge. He also studied the rituals that supposedly were needed to ensure the protection of the gods. And he observed how this enriched the material well-being of the priests and did not help the rest of the people. He was looking for that God who is truthful. He studied for this purpose in many temples, but now Pythagoras and Hamilcar lived as if in a different world, the world of light and love, not altogether in a world where their bodies were prisoners. The teacher and the student have found each other. The knowledge of Pythagoras in everything shocked Hamilcar. But most of all, Hamilcar was surprised by Pythagoras's mild tenderness and care towards those who surrounded him. Sincere love and surprising calm, as if it filled all the space around him. He himself as a soul created and manifested these states. Every day Pythagoras opened the new horizons to his disciple. Did you want to acquire freedom, Hamilcar? Yes, but now I am already feeling myself more free than ever before. All the time, I rushed off somewhere looking for something. But now I see the entrance to the infinite freedom where you live now. All that is left is to enter into it. Have you ever thought before that there is a true freedom? What does it consist of? Aspiration of freedom, leading a person for a long time from one slavery to another. For example, one can change his ties from poverty to the slavery of owning wealth, the slavery of luxury. Or one changes his status of a prisoner who is forced to obey the orders of other people to a different kind of bondage which consists of his own possibility to rule over others and to command. The capability to seek for the true freedom is growing slowly in the soul. The majority of people are not ready for freedom. Look, they want orders for themselves how they should act and what they should do. They usually obey the authority above themselves, but at the same time they hate and condemn those who rule over them. The violence of tyrants deserves resistance and counteraction. But sometimes the initiatives of governors that lead to progress meet the protest of a crowd, disturbed by violence against their free will. At the same time, cursing and condemning the governors, the crowd still obeys them. If those people are left without leadership, they sink into laziness and other vices. Understand that permissiveness is not a freedom at all. And idleness and sloth decompose the souls. This behavior is the fate of small and weak souls. But this is the majority of the people in all nations. Those people are like the children, who should mature and become stronger, kinder and smarter. But this growing up is not happening very quickly. Many incarnations will be required for this. However, there are some souls which are matured in many of their successful incarnations, so that their strength and mind exceed a lot in comparison with average majority of souls. They can aspire to independence and sway in their life, for example leading and managing others. And the best of these souls, the most pure and full of love, are capable of great acts of kindness and of the sublime creativeness for the sake of others. In such a way the great devotees, for example poets and sages, manifest themselves. It is only the mature souls which begin from a young age to think about the purpose of one's life and seek the true freedom. Yes, freedom for the soul is possible, although the ability to become free does not mature quickly. The soul can be a prisoner of one's own emotions and actions that have the roots in negative qualities. Hence, moral purification and transformation are necessary. Besides, the souls are also strongly attached to the earthly material world by their own desires, and the liberation from this occurs very gradually. Every soul during an incarnation in a body fuses with it on different levels of subtlety. This process already begins in the mother's womb. After being born, a human inevitably learns how to interact with the dense layers of the universe with the help of the body. Other people and all the surrounding material space motivate the development of the child's desires and abilities the most approximate to the dense material layers. The child learns to see, touch and hear with the bodily organs. With their help, the child also eats, drinks, walks, talks. The child learns to live only in the world which can be visible to the bodily eyes, and usually nobody teaches him or her to interact with the subtle and subtlest worlds, with the divine worlds. Moreover, nobody teaches how to live in these subtlest worlds. In such a way the soul adheres to the material world. So this attachment does not disappear, even strengthens with the growth and maturity of the body. This attachment may decrease only in the consequence of conscious aspirations of the soul. The soul can be very tied by earthly thoughts, objectives, emotions and desires, so that it becomes similar to a sluggish turtle which creeps on the surface of the ground, not being able by virtue of its own natural ability to straighten and then to come off of a material substratum. This is usually common in young souls. They will need to live more than one incarnation in human bodies in order to crave for freedom from the material world and to acquire an aspiration for the spiritual world, for the true freedom, for the divine light. At the next stage, the soul can strive to the highest goal and have only a solid support in the terrestrial world. Then it is similar to a man who walks in harmony. He puts his feet on the ground one by one. He lifts the first leg only when the other is already placed on the ground. One of his feet is all the time in connection with the ground, while the other is looking for a new footing. While moving forward, such a soul strongly relies on earthly things, so the soul can perceive and master much more in its own spiritual development. When the soul has greatly matured and has acquired wisdom over a number of incarnations, then it strives rapidly to the true goal, sweeping away everything superfluous and unnecessary from one's life. Then it is like a runner who only touches the ground in order to give acceleration to the body. For the soul, everything material just means minimal necessary things which can help to accumulate strength and wisdom for the sake of achieving the main goal. And soon such a soul can learn how to be absolutely free of all earthly things. Then, like a bird, the soul hovers above the dense material world and is no longer in need of earthly supports for its own movement. And the freedom comprehended in the unity with the whole, this is a great victory. So, is it fully possible to not depend on the material world at all? Hamilcar asked. Yes, this is possible. There are those who even have control over the matter of their own bodies and all other material objects. This can be done by those divine consciousnesses who have joined the power and the will of the whole and made their bodies divine. He made them immortal. The soul is capable of growing together with the world of transparent calm and divine fire. Moreover, The body can be transformed by these states. Then the matter itself becomes the spirit, and the body will not recognize death, as the great Thoth-the-Atlantean said. So this is how the great teachers of the people on the earth have lived during the millennia in their immortal bodies. Free and ubiquitous, they have lived in the bodies for centuries, but they have not depended on the bodies and earthly circumstances. They were deciding the fate of civilizations in accordance with the will of the primordial consciousness. Let's direct our efforts now to the full freedom of the soul, but not to the immortality of the body. The freedom of the immortal soul, one's divinity, is for you now the first significant and real goal. To grow oneself as the God-man is an inalienable right of the soul. The freedom from the bodily flesh enslavement and the unity with the divine light achieved by one's own will of the soul, this ability can be achieved by those who strive to do this and who are ready for this. Having the material body allows for the soul to rise into God. So it is a reality. Many people have traversed this path. They are those who we can see and hear in the great light of the whole. They are the souls who have achieved the fullness of divinity. They are presented like the unity of all united we of all the perfect ones. They come from the unity of the primordial whole, and they carry the creative fire in themselves. They can justifiably be called gods because they are united with the primordial divine consciousness. But let us move on to the practical steps. You know a lot, and you, as a soul, are strong. You will soon acquire the freedom of your self-soul from your material and dense body. Then you will cognize the transparent calm that becomes available through the peace of mind in the great silence. I can show you the true freedom. You, as a soul, are only partially connected to your body. And soon you will acquire the capability of the soul to live absolutely free from the body. However, your body will remain quite alive and able to function. You already possess a powerful, clean and strong energy both in the body and far beyond. The magic exercises of the priests have developed in you the will and the strength. And the size of yourself as consciousness is already very solid. But we have to start from the beginning in order to create in you a source of the subtlest tenderness and love. Only this allows the soul to develop properly. The rude force will eventually lead to the dead end on the way. The soul must be pure in order to be trained consciously under the guidance of the omnipotent gods. Tell me, Hamilcar, did you think about where the body, the soul and the divine light can have the main connection? No, I didn't think about it. I was taught that the human thought, his intention and willpower are the basics of magic. Nevertheless, there is a place where the man and the ocean of great power of God, giving life to everything, can find the connection. This is the spiritual heart of the man. It is not located in the matter of a body, neither in the body's organs, nor in the brain, nor in lungs, nor in the physical heart nor bones. But this center is originally located in the chest, approximately in that place where the person feels one's own center when breathing. For this reason, in the traditions of some spiritual schools, they give such an attention to the breathing exercises. In this heart center, the person has the opportunity to comprehend what love is. For this purpose, it is necessary to learn how to shift into the center. Feel yourself in this cordial center. Here is like a transparent sphere which can be extended to infinity. Try as if to immerse yourself in this sphere entirely, as in some transparent ball, where the walls can be stretched, enlarged by the movement of your hands of the soul. Try to look at the world from this center. Hamilcar, with some effort, plunged into the space of light inside his chest. This space began to expand by the movements of his hands of the consciousness. And the state of soul changed. The love and joy filled Hamilcar, as if the door to the world of light had opened. That was such a bliss to love, and to feel that you are loved. As if Divine Mother and Divine Father had embraced and accepted him into their world. And as if the fetters that restrained his love and tenderness, which were always inside him, but never before allowed to manifest outwards, had fallen off. Pythagoras continued, "May your first step be to send love from this center of the soul to all souls that live in the universe. Direct this flow forward and send love, bliss, tenderness, peace and calm. Let it feel like the supreme power, in agreement with you, bestows the light and bliss like the solar wind, which embraces a vast space and glides freely his boundless flow to all creatures of the earth." Perfect. Now direct this flow in all directions in sequence. To the left, back to the right, upwards and downwards. Do you feel now that you are connected to the divine light? Not everyone can do it all at once. But the fulfillment of this daily attitude of sending love from this center of the soul is essential in order to refine the soul and to accustom oneself to be loving. You came to this life already knowing the divine states. But in the last incarnation you did not have time to comprehend everything that is necessary in order to keep yourself in the unity. You were not strong enough. So that is why in this life you aspired and looked for it without understanding that it is the freedom that attracts you. Hamilcar barely heard the words of Pythagoras. So great was the happiness of feeling the divine love. Here it is, what he was looking for all his life. This bliss of mergence with the divine consciousness. It turned out that it was necessary to look for it right inside of his own spiritual heart. Apparently that is how simple it is to open the door to the true freedom. So if he could, he would stay in this mergence forever. But Hamilcar lost that feeling soon. Pythagoras consoled him, "Not for one time the new states of soul are strengthened, even if they were comprehended before. For those who come to this stage for the first time, the ability to feel in the chest one's face, including the eyes and the lips, can help to master the life by the spiritual heart. It is possible to look at the world from the spiritual heart, or to turn the sight of consciousness back. And then, the vast expanses of the divine light will be nearby, right behind the back of the body. When the soul enters into an interaction with the divine light and harmony of the universe, then a new life begins for this person. This ability to live by the spiritual heart cannot hurt anyone. And this simple initial exercise will also help your future disciples." The disciples? Yes, having mastered what I can teach you, you should give the received knowledge to other people. This is the task that we must accomplish on earth. And it is really simple to make this first step on the spiritual path. For anyone who strives for virtue and has accepted the true moral principles into one's life, it is necessary to do it. The next thing you should master is the ability to control your emotions. Oh, if only people would have desire to find out how this truth is simple, pure, and important. Love is the power of God in the universe. Love is the only direct path of comprehension of the divine whole and mergence with the creative power of God. Chapter 6. Chariot, or How to Control the Emotions. One day when the Persians had rest, they arranged a contest based on captured chariots. Shouting, hooting, whistling storm of emotions. Pythagoras offered Hamilcar the chance to observe those people who were competing and those who won or lost, just betting money on a winner. See how easily people get overwhelmed with passions. Easily they start exulting over a prize, or they become angry and depressed with grief from loss. The stormy sea of their uncontrollable emotions makes their lives as fragile shells in the stormy ocean of passions and sufferings. Ups and downs in their lives follow each other, like a boat takes off on the crest of a wave and then falls down again into the abyss between the stormy waves. At any moment a destruction of this boat may come. And then Pythagoras told Hamilcar calmly that the energies of the consciousness soul's emotions must be kept under volitional control. Just as a chariot is controlled by a charioteer, in the same way every person must keep under control their states of consciousness. And then this person will not be similar to a fragile boat on the ocean, but will be able to direct one's life to the goal. In order to manage the emotions, it is not enough just to have a desire to control them. For mastering the emotions, it is necessary to learn certain centers inside your body. As if a flute that sounds in harmony with the person who plays on it, or the lyre's tuned strings which are subject to the will of a player. In the same way, those centers should become obedient tools, managed by the human will. Look here, now the revelry of the crowd's passions is almost uncontrollable. These people are subject to their emotions and they have lost control over themselves. Now they became the prisoners of their emotions. They are entirely overtaken with the jubilation from the winnings or disappointment from loss. Even those who do not participate in the contest, but are only placing the bets and win, or lose gold and jewels, they are exposed to these emotions and became their slaves. But man is capable of learning how to control his own emotional states. These centers which I am talking about are called by the Indians chakras. Let you and I use this word to designate these centers in the human body. Chakras are similar to cavities, where energy is concentrated and shifting. Moreover, it occurs uncontrolledly and spontaneously in the majority of people. Those chakras are 7. Anahata is one of them, and located just in the middle, where the development of the spiritual heart should begin. This is a true abode of the soul at the primary stages of spiritual growth. At this time, the horses from one of the chariots got out of control of the charioteer who was unfamiliar to them. The horses, frightened by the roar of the crowd, jerked away. A sharp turn with a jerk dumped from the chariot the one who did not feel those horses, and consequently could not control them. 6 frenzied animals along with the chariot raced towards the prisoners who were sitting apart on the ground. Among them there were women, children. It seemed like in a moment many people might be hurt and injured. Hamilcar saw and assessed the situation in the blink of an eye, measured the distance. Pythagoras said confidently, "You can do this. Stop them." The body of the giant seemed to catch the wave of great power. He rushed across to the racing chariot, accurately calculating the place where he could intercept it. Both the prisoners and the warriors were frozen to the spot and observed what was happening. Hamilcar was able to catch it. He grasped the reins and was able to stop the horses. The incredible force of the Phoenician shocked everyone. He confidently reined in the horses, leading them from running to a trot. Then he stroked each horse quietly and gently, restoring their confidence in the man who would be ruling them. He climbed on the chariot and rode slowly along the crowd of prisoners, along the Persian camp. He was escorted by rapt stares and cheers. He drove to the competitors, stopped the horses and came down from the chariot. No one had any doubt who was the winner of that day. Hamilcar stopped the chariot and gave the reins to one of the warriors and headed to that part of the camp where Pythagoras was waiting for him. They continued their conversation. Perfect Hamilcar. In exactly this way can one live, without exulting in victories and without disappointment of loss. You are the winner today. Although you will not receive the material prize in these competitions, the reward from the great ones is waiting for you. You correctly moved your self-consciousness into the appropriate chakras, and the force in your body has increased many times. So you did something that even for you seemed impossible before. And this happened because the universal power has added its energy into your action. It is necessary to master the knowledge of self-control through the use of chakras in order for the soul to always perceive and manifest the divine will through the body. In order to master this, the space inside the chakras must be cleaned, expanded and connected to that subtlest light which you already can see with the eyes of the soul. You should also learn how to shift yourself, like through the multi-story tower on the floors of these energy centers. And it is necessary to fill each chakra with a pure white light. Also, it is necessary to expand the borders of the chakras, as if pushing the walls of the rooms to infinity. Feel how every chakra If you entered into it by your concentration, brings all the consciousness to a certain state. As a result of this work, you will be able to freely move through these centers and make more active these or other necessary states of your self-soul and cause undesirable states to be extinguished completely. May only the divine states henceforth fill out the space inside your chakras and your entire body. Hamilcar began to push aside the borders of the chakras and started to move on the levels formed. After a while, the space inside of all chakras had been connected by the vertical ascending flow of transparent living light. The borders of the chakras were swept away by this flow, pouring out bliss and power. The fountain of light and power spouted through the body and filled the space around it. It was as if Hamilcar's body soared in the flow. Oh well. Not bad. You immediately mastered the connection of all chakras by the middle meridian. And you have easily accomplished this at a very high level of subtlety. But we should pay special attention to this method while teaching others. Not everyone can do it just as easily as you could. Chapter 7. The Inner Quietness. Now Hamilcar was meeting each morning with joyful anticipation for the communication with the living divine light. The love naturally flowed from his spiritual heart toward all beings. That love which he could give now to all around him, and the reciprocal love of the Divine Father and Mother, as if finally recognized by him, surrounded him, met him and immersed him into a new life in the light. His training with Pythagoras continued. Next, you need to master the ability to communicate with specific divine souls in this light. This way it is possible to learn how to perceive that knowledge from those who know much more and who are always ready to share it with us. In order to perceive the divine thoughts, it is necessary to clear and calm one's mind. For this purpose it is necessary to learn the inner quietness. Only through this is it possible, in the subtlest worlds, to become one with that light, that love and that transparent silence which you are learning now. Great divine consciousness reveals its secrets only to that person who has learned to listen, by comprehending the quietness of his own mind. And is it possible not to have one's own thoughts, not to think at all? When I saw you for the first time, it seemed to me as if you carry the silence by yourself, a certain special calm. How do you succeed in this? For the beginning, plunge into the space of your spiritual heart. Perceive from your personal experience that you can continue to listen to me without transferring the concentration to your body's head. You can listen to me through your self-soul, immersed in your spiritual heart. For now the ears of your material body will be helping you to listen. However, in the future you will be able to listen to me, even when our bodies are divided by the sea. But that is going to be later, and now you should hearken and do. So it is necessary to leave the 3 upper chakras, where the mind usually thinks and evaluates events. This is inherent to that part of yourself as a soul which lives by being fastened to the material body. By transferring the perception of yourself into the heart center, that you are already able to do, you penetrate into the space where there is no rushing flow of restless thoughts. Exactly in this way, so easily we can force our mind to be silent. In order to merge with the divine consciousness and to perceive the knowledge from the divine souls, it is necessary to retain constantly the level of subtlety that is inherent to them. The rough cannot penetrate into the subtle and become one piece with it. The air filled with dust is not suitable for breathing. The water mixed with dirt is not suitable for drinking. In the same way, the soul which is unrefined from coarse impurities and filthy states is not capable of pure perception of something extremely subtle and divine. I shall repeat, the coarse is not able to enter into the mergence with the subtle. Only when you get used to their subtlety is it possible to learn unity with them. Always remember this. And the inner quietness helps to learn it. People create sounds. Nature is filled with sounds too. Many sounds touch on our hearing now. Noise generated by human bodies by hooves of horses, the creaking of the wagons, distant sounds of sea waves rolling to the coast. While the divine consciousness in his abode is the owner of absolute quietness. In order to comprehend this, it is necessary to start listening to the transparent silence with a completely purified and expanded spiritual heart. Let your love embrace the space further and further. In such a way, you will master the transparent calmness of the divine existence which remains underneath everything. In this state it is possible to hear the primordial one, and then to dissolve in him. The first stage of such a connection is the cognition of the state of non-I. Look at any sound that you have made. It spreads like the ripples on water from a thrown stone, overspreading further and further. Its nature is the manifestation, the emanation of the individual I from the center of itself. And now perceive the reverse process. Now you listen. As far as you as a soul are capable of, you embrace with your spiritual heart the vast expanse of the desert and the depths of the planet and far beyond its borders. And you are hearing everything that happens everywhere there, but you are immovable and transparent yourself, as if you are empty inside. And the former you, who was in the center almost does not exist. You are dissolved in all other existing things. The soul has hands. Dive in deeper and deeper, using the soul's hands, as if in the depths of the ocean, their living silence of the depths absorbs you from all sides and fills you up with itself. The great ocean of silence and power has filled up with itself everything around and also penetrated into the body of Hamilcar. Hamilcar could either feel himself as a whole ocean or soar in its depth. If the body would disappear right now, what changes? I am as an ocean, and in fact, shall not cease to exist. But, nevertheless, this state could not last longer. Pythagoras continued to explain, you should study this state very well. Because the great silence and self-dissolution in it allow the purification of the soul from all impurities of not truth, and also to perceive the divine voice. The voices of divine teachers are clearly audible to the adept if he asks a question and plunges into the silence. One can even see in the light the faces of those greatest who are ready to render assistance. In order to make this possible, it is necessary to clear the mind completely from selfishness, including pride. And the great deeds become realizable only when the thinking of the soul unites with the divine thinking. Then the body becomes an instrument for the manifestation on the material plane of that which the divine will requires. Chapter 8. The Grove of the Lebanese Cedars. One day the convoy with the prisoners stopped in the grove of the Lebanese Cedars. It was an oasis delightful in its beauty. No one could ever dream of such a place for rest during those long days of exhausting travel in the stony and dusty desert under scorching beams of the midday sun. These cedars had seen the world many centuries ago. The air among them was clear and saturated with the special aroma of heated resin and pine needles. Hamilcar and Pythagoras were able to settle down very well under the shadow of the huge cedar that was standing slightly apart from all other trees. This tree was taller and mightier than the others, probably. This cedar was the parent for many trees growing around it. Hamilcar remembered his childhood. The same cedar was in the garden at the temple, where he was sent by his stepfather to get education after the death of his mother. Hamilcar had been deprived of parental love at that time. He felt himself so alone in the world. That giant cedar had become his best friend back then. Hamilcar had loved only this tree. And the cedar responded to him with its marvelous love. Sometimes Hamilcar spent hours sitting under this tree and silently talking about his troubles to it, like with a best friend. The calmness of the cedar had filled him, and his childhood troubles had not seemed so unbearable anymore. The strength, the majesty, and the inner purity of the tree had become as if an essence of himself at those moments. Later on, when Hamilcar got older and had learned various techniques of work with consciousness, which he had been trained in by the priests, he began to see the huge soft glow emanating from the cedar far away. Connecting oneself's soul to this light helped him to clear the negative emotions and come into a state of deep calm. It was as if Hamilcar was becoming a giant tree, growing for many centuries in this material world, and the non-material strength was arising from the depth along the trunk to every needle. The peace and the love were healing. Now from the perspective of the new knowledge gained from Pythagoras, Hamilcar was happy to find that the power of that miracle tree was not just an imagination of his childhood fantasies. The giant cedar beside whose trunk they were sitting possessed similar traits. By directing one's sincere love toward it, it was possible with its help to fill oneself with the refined light, or it was possible to fill out with oneself love the whole space filled with the energy of the cedar around the crown, around the roots and far beyond. Hamilcar told Pythagoras about his childhood experience. Pythagoras as usual could feel and see with his inner eye all the fullness of Hamilcar's childhood feelings, and what such a communication of oneself's soul with the trees, possessing the refined strength, could give to future disciples. Perfect Hamilcar. Today you added one more treasure to the treasury box of our knowledge. Hamilcar was amazed at how easily Pythagoras, being his teacher, was ready to learn from his disciple. He was thinking about how Pythagoras's wisdom was combined with his marvelous modesty. His greatness never suppressed those around him. Pythagoras pronounced, "The energetic shells surround the human bodies. They can be seen by the eyes of the soul. If one is tuned to such a perception, all living beings, incarnated into bodies, have similar kinds of shells. They can be named cocoons. Such a cocoon of light also exists around the cedar. It can help to work with the energies inside and around our bodies. I recently explained to you the cleansing movements of the energies along the trajectory which involves the major energetic canals of our bodies. These circulations of the energies through the spinal canals and the front side of the body greatly facilitate such a purification. So here next to this tree, it is very convenient to make such movements, particularly in expanded space around the body. These exercises are very simple, and they purify the body very efficiently. When all energies inside the body and inside the cocoon are pure, then the soul can easily start learning how to exit from the body and both grow and expand in the universal space in the subtle and the subtlest eons. It is possible to make a smooth transition from the work inside the energy structures of the body to such a growth of the soul, so it can become incomparably greater than the size of the human body, feeling his power of consciousness with pleasure. Hamilcar made a few circulations of luminous energies around his body in a space over a long distance. It was quite pleasant. Pythagoras continued, "Now you performed this technique as a certain exercise for purification, and it was not bad at all. Many diseases can be treated or prevented in this way, by purifying the energies in the body and in the cocoon. But now try again to feel this cedar, but as a real friend exactly the same way you did in childhood, and the secrets of the universe will open wide in front of you." Hamilcar felt ashamed of his attitude which had suddenly arisen towards the cedar. Viewing it just as an opportunity to master the next exercise, he noticed for himself the fact that the perception of one's own successes provokes growing arrogance and a feeling of oneself as being more important than everything around. He connected the consciousness with the cedar again, but this time, the mergence filled with the emotion of love occurred on a more subtle level, giving rise to a state of bliss. Hamilcar involuntarily plunged deeper in the light of the divine consciousness. After a while, Pythagoras continued, "The perception of the connectedness of everything that exists is very important. One whole divine organism grows and develops in the universe, including our planet. If this understanding becomes inherent to people, then the knowledge about the connectedness and the value of every living thing, including every big or small creature, will help to create a foundation for the moral perception of the world and one's own moral lifestyle. I think we should have such trees at our future school. They will help many souls to grow in size as consciousnesses and to learn the purification and the calm." Please memorize such techniques of the spiritual work for your future disciples. Hamilcar was amazed again and again at the comprehensiveness which was inherent to Pythagoras' perception of everything that happened to them, to everything new that had opened. He also noticed that Pythagoras always lined up all the new methods into a harmonious sequence, thus forming the project activities of the future school. Sometimes it seemed to Hamilcar that this school of Pythagoras already existed, so brightly and enthusiastically Pythagoras was talking about his intention. Chapter 9. The Project of the Future School. Hamilcar was inspired by Pythagoras' ideas of creating the school of science and art for the education of souls. They were often discussing new methods of teaching and the principles of operation for their project. One day Pythagoras pronounced, "Yes, we should create that image of the new school now which will become a reality in the future. In order to make this happen, the plan should be well thought out to the smallest details. The project must be impeccably beautiful, so that all the perfect ones, all those who have attained divinity, will allow us to do it, and would help to breathe in that power in this image which executes the divine plans into reality, and then we can easily implement everything on the material plane. I believe that the initial stages of spiritual self-perfection, including the ethical laws of harmony, should be available and clear to all people, and the higher techniques of self-perfection should be hidden from them until a certain time. Likewise, the mountain peaks beyond the clouds will become open only to those who have already climbed high enough. In the same way, the higher methods of self-development are objectively necessary only for those who strive not only to the unity with the primordial one, but have already themselves passed a significant part of the spiritual path. But all the people must be aware of such a possibility of transformation into the divine soul. We could start to educate people to be free and beautiful. It would be those for whom the work is a creativity of the soul. And the joy will fill these souls because of their own spiritual ascent and because of help to the companions on the path, as well as from creation of beauty, harmony and order for all people. In the process of gaining such a freedom, the souls will purify themselves and will approach the light, and they will serve as an example to others. Yes, this will not happen fast, but it is possible. The moral purity should become a starting point, the beginning of such a transformation for souls. It is necessary to raise the new generations of people to be capable of being free, loving and strong. Those worthy of freedom should create themselves in this way. But we could help them with it. This work has been entrusted to us by those who initiate the souls into the holy light. As a result, over the years, those who are worthy of imitation and admiration could become the leaders in the human society. They must be morally pure and beautiful. They must lead the nations to harmony and peace. With their selfless service to people, they will change a lot. It is dangerous when the desire to enrich oneself at the expense of others or enjoyment of freedom of command gains control over the earthly leaders. The power brings them joy, and the people become their victims. It is essentially important to purify the mind from all vicious thoughts and desires. Moral purity, it is the only right way to begin the path. Behold how dangerous a big consciousness becomes, controlled by a small and dirty mind. And how many woes is such a person capable of causing, perceiving himself as great. That is exactly how the tyrants come into this world. Hamilcar, this should lead you to understand that the development of the soul's strength should never overtake the growth of love and wisdom in a person. The mind and strength should always be in harmony, under the leadership of love. Hamilcar asked, "How many people have heard your speeches here? But none of them wanted to truly learn from you. They were quite satisfied with your certain advice. Why do so many people not want to study at all?" The need of knowledge, especially spiritual knowledge, gradually grows in a person. Look, hunger teaches us to earn a living, sexual desire and procreation teach love and care. This can be observed in both humans and animals. At the beginning, everybody learns by obeying the passions or the necessities of life. Gradually over the years, an aspiration for cognition of spiritual knowledge, aspiration for wisdom can be developed in certain people only. The serious growth of a soul begins only with the appearance of the conscious need to cognize what is important in life and learn how to truly love. That's why the people's need to learn and to love should be encouraged. Moreover, your every thought should penetrate into the spiritual heart of the listener. And then this person's mind will be also filled with understanding. The soul's wisdom grows if it is supplied not only with knowledge but also with love. The souls advance to perfection very slowly. It is not easy to transform, change oneself, get rid of bad qualities and start cultivating new skills and states of oneself's soul, even if you begin to aspire to this. And also we should help others very carefully in order not to exceed the capabilities of every specific soul. It is very important that a person who is still weak will not be broken under the pressure of new knowledge and mismatch of what he would like to achieve and what he can do at this time. Also, it is necessary to ensure that he could see in his teachers those ideals which he aspires to achieve, and the people who cognize the truth and represent the divine whole could be perceived by him too. Besides, among friends and companions, one should have the examples of pure aspiration and willingness to achieve success in a spiritual life, and not only in a material life, where false values and goals sometimes impede one to see and understand the true purpose of human life. That's why it would be desirable to create communities of those who strive to the divine light. Their mutual aid would be a base for those who are still weak, but aspiring to the purity and wisdom as well. Practical methods of work on self-improvement should be feasible for everyone, and the limitations should be feasible as well, so that the burden should be manageable on the path of the soul. It is like a beautiful garden of various souls which should be grown and cultivated, where there will be a place for the still weak grass, gorgeous roses, and mighty fruit-bearing trees. Just like a gardener who can fertilize the soil and protect from cold the barely arising sprouts, he can cut the dry and crooked branches, straightening and directing the growth of both certain plants and the whole garden, the same way as a teacher can gently direct the development and growth of souls. But the dirt accumulated by the soul in the past, as well as the vicious reactions, cannot be removed at one time simply because the soul wanted to become pure. No, the purification of the soul is hard work. As a child does not mature within 1 year, that way so a young soul doesn't quickly overcome the path to the unity with the whole. Only highly mature souls under wise leadership can pass the last stages of the path within one life. But it is useful to give even small portions of kindness and knowledge to young souls, to those who are ready to master the very first lessons at this time. Also, it should be taken into consideration that young souls are very receptive and pliable. The stronger ones usually want themselves to influence others. Hamilcar recalled many powerful and capable beginner seekers whom he had met in his life, and noted regretfully that most likely none of them would want to become Pythagoras' disciple. He expressed this thought aloud: yes, many priests in different temples think they know everything, and they are only ready to moralize others. There are very few of those who, already possessing some knowledge, didn't become proud and are ready to continue their studies. Yes, Hamilcar, that's why it doesn't make sense to give everybody the highest methods. The ability to generalize the gained knowledge and put it into practice is very important as well, but not everybody is capable of doing this nowadays, and that is why, in particular, there are very few around us who are objectively ready and able to study and, in addition, really want this and intend to get rid of their vices. But without this, there should be no admission to the highest initiations. You could often observe how a foolish person begins to make fun of something that is beyond his understanding. So never strive to give that knowledge to the person who is not ready to accept it yet. And you yourself never laugh at and despise those who have not reached your level of perception, because they are not capable of it yet. Look at yourself with the eyes of omniscient gods, and behold the smallness of your own knowledge compared to their wisdom. You and I both should not be ashamed of learning more. The divine wisdom is boundless and immense, and it constantly is replenished with new findings and discoveries. The primordial consciousness is the united we. It consists of the great perfect ones. It lives forever and is constantly evolving at the same time. So let us never stop the process of our self-perfecting as well. There is a law of paternity-maternity. The eldest serve the youngest with their wisdom and love care. But it is necessary to always keep in mind that the comprehension of one's own chosenness to serve the whole should not be an occasion for pride. Perception of the sufficiency of one's own level of development. Instead, let each leader increase one's own responsibility for every act, for every word spoken. There is no reason for looking haughtily at younger souls. Yes, it is not easy to love people who are not evolutionarily developed enough, especially when those people are burdened with multiple vices and lowly desires. But in order to help humanity, it is necessary to master the wise and all-embracing love. Seeing both the vices and glimpses of light in the souls, it is necessary to help germinate the best in them. And this can be done only by someone who has learned to love with the divine love. Unwise earthly governors which dominate now consider people only as a means to satisfy their own interests. They do not realize that in this way they catastrophically ruin their destinies. Only the one who has mastered the great love to the whole can be the mediator of the divine will here, on the material plane, and it includes in itself each growing soul, developing on this piece of the universal beingness which is called by us the planet Earth. We could also teach both the worthy earthly leaders and those boys and girls who may become the leaders in the future, and of course all other people who are ready for such a study. Chapter 10. About the growth of the soul. The convoy with the prisoners now continued its way along the seacoast. The soft, smooth sound of waves from the light surf and the freshness of the sea breeze were filling with joy. The cries of the seagulls seemed to emphasize the vastness of the sea. The sunsets and sunrises, the greatness and the beauty of all nature, all were fascinating. In the early morning hours, when almost everybody was still sleeping, Pythagoras used to show his disciple new meditative techniques. Now Hamilcar as a soul could always clearly hear Pythagoras explaining the exercises, even when he was motionless, and did not say a word aloud when it was preferable to do so. Pythagoras's lips did not move, his face expressed the calm bliss, but the voice clearly sounded for Hamilcar. For example, such a vastness contributes to the growth of the soul. And it is very important. Spread with your spiritual heart over the sea surface. Realize how huge the soul can be. Now you are not just bigger than your physical body, but you are enormous. And strive to really feel yourself over the entire surface of our planet. And feel the huge arms of the soul. Move by the soul into the space, where the sky merges with the sea surface. Descend there as if you are diving behind the edge of the earth, behind a horizon. There one can conceive one of the entrances into the immensity of the sacred fire, which is similar to the sun, but is infinite in size. Through the mergences with the divine consciousness in the aspects of the light, and then in the aspects of the divine fire, we learn to become divine ourselves. Some time later, when Hamilcar had strengthened and adapted to the new states, Pythagoras continued, during many years of living in the body, a person usually gets used to identifying oneself with the body, but we are the souls, not the bodies. We are alive even without the bodies. And we can live without being attached to our physical shells. The post-mortal life without a body, however, can be very different for various souls. Those who lived with hatred or fear and were captives of their own selfish desires have a very sad fate. They become victims of more powerful villains. A completely different fate awaits those who have accustomed themselves to live in love and light in the subtlest worlds. How joyful it is for these souls to perceive their freedom from matter in the eon of the divine light and fire. Imagine that you no longer have a body, you have nowhere to go back to, and now you have no other home for the soul than the house of light fire. Learn this. Also, once breaking the identification with the body, in order not to lose the capability to act, you should now learn how to use the arms of the soul. Then later on, they will bring the power of the whole towards where it is needed. The palms and fingers of such hands are all-seeing. And the form of consciousness, which is similar to a body, but giant in size, is familiar to us, and that is why it is convenient in the subtlest worlds as well. Specifically from the light of oneself soul, we can shape our new giant divine appearance. Give it a try. Likewise, a mountain consisting of the light and rising above a vast sea, you can rise from the ocean of the divine light and then shape your face, arms and torso. Often the divine souls use the appearances of light, which are huge in size, to communicate with incarnate people who have the ability to see with the eyes of the soul. Such an appearance, which is capable of acting without possessing a material body, has a perspective for future assistance to incarnate people and for your current efforts of mastering the divine beingness. Such a body of the light will subsequently become your eternal body. Its size can be changed, and its luminosity can be thickened slightly when there is a need to communicate with incarnate people. And now the energies consisting of your material body will transfigure into the divine, while at the time you will have the center of perception of creation in the body of the light. It is realistic to live and perceive the subtlest worlds inside of the body of the light. For the relationships with the dense world, you will manifest everything that is necessary through your material body. But even you who have already experienced these states in the past lives will not master everything that I just told you in one day. But if you will not practice, the skills you have already gained can be easily lost. That is why it is necessary to work hard, mastering new skills until they become the natural qualities of the soul. Chapter 11. The Dancing Girl. Along the way, the convoy with the prisoners encountered a small temple. The main priestess came out to meet the commander and asked him not to desecrate the sanctuary. She was young and slender, her body was swarthy and extraordinarily flexible, and her dark brown eyes looked at the warrior without fear. She bowed with dignity. There are no treasures that might interest you, but there are beauties like you. You can pay a ransom differently, he pronounced with mocking laughter, reveling in his power. Don't you have enough slaves who are ready to delight your bodies? You can also replenish their number once I give the command. The commander said, mockingly again. So beauty, spend only this night with me, and your priestesses and your temple will remain untouched. Do you agree? No. I would rather spend this night with a wild animal. Oh, really? Then I take you at your word. Let it be an entertainment for everybody. Do you agree to give your love to a wild animal? Let it be. You will entertain us today, and you will show everyone how to love a lion. If you can kiss him, and he will not tear you to pieces, I swear by the gods, I will command that no harm come to you and your temple. Hamilcar and Pythagoras, who had the right to move around the camp in order to treat the sick, appeared nearby and heard this conversation. Hamilcar asked in Greek quietly, "Can you intercede in order to help her, Pythagoras? Perhaps we will try to do it, but it is not time yet, and maybe she will manage herself. You should finally understand, my friend, that even if we have the power, we should not change the events and destinies of other people on a whim. So we have no right to cure sicknesses until the lessons given by the higher power are not understood by a person yet. And that's why we usually give the decoctions of medicinal herbs to the sick, and at the same time we strive to present the understanding of the laws of healing the souls, but we do not completely return the health immediately to all diseased. Indiscriminately. In the meantime, the military commander ordered the preparation of everything for the entertainment. The news about this show flew around the camp. The soldiers had recently caught a lion and put him in a large cage, intending to replenish the zoo in Babylon. Sometimes they arranged amusements for themselves, forcing the slaves to fight with this lion. But now the young priestess was placed in the cage with the lion. The gathered spectators were waiting impatiently to see what would happen next. Cruelty turned into entertainment often ceases to seem to be criminal to many ethically perverse people. The mocking exclamations, because this priestess preferred a wild animal for the night of love instead of the brave warrior, and now she will pay for it, were heard everywhere, here and there. Let's see how she will share a bed with a wild animal, some of them yelled mockingly. The young priestess, being in the cage, clapped her hands several times and started the dance. The hollers of the crowd of spectators ceased. It seemed that the lion was also entranced by her movements. The girl, freely controlling her body, made her plastic and pliable dance almost without leaving her spot. Everyone was absorbed, watching her every move. The lion was also watching as if charmed, and did not show aggression. And so the dancing girl slowly began to approach the animal. Pythagoras came closer and stood next to the cage and began to clap his hands in rhythm. And with this rhythm everything plunged into the special state of the transparent light, and no one could move their hands or feet. Only the priestess was accelerating the movements of her flexible and beautiful body, approaching closer to the lion in dance. For a few moments she put her arms around the neck of the animal with her hands and touched his muzzle with her lips. And again her rhythmic and beautiful movements continued to fascinate the spectators. She repeated this 3 times, so nobody could doubt that she had accomplished it. Pythagoras opened the bolt and entered the cage. He put his hand on the lion's withers and let him out of the cage. For a few moments they approached the commander, who gave the order to arrange this spectacle. The commander could not even move in order to snatch a weapon. For the moment he felt himself helpless in the face of the wild animal. Then Pythagoras passed through the whole camp and pointed the direction to the lion. Go home. You are free. The lion slowly left. No one dared to impede Pythagoras. Only when Pythagoras came back did the stupor of the spectators and the guards begin to disappear. The dancing girl bowed to Pythagoras. I salute you, wise man, knowing the divine rhythms of the universe. The commander fully awakened and cried out, what do you allow yourself, Greek? If you were allowed to treat the sick, then this is not an excuse to control everything here. Do you wish to die? Pythagoras said calmly and softly, but she surely did what you wanted? Now, indeed, the temple and its priestesses are under your protection. The protection of the one who swore by the gods whom he worships. Indeed, it is good when the wild lions live in a desert and the people behave in such a way that they are not ashamed before the gods. Yes, I will keep my word, the Persian unexpectedly agreed. That evening Hamilcar and Pythagoras sat by the fire for a long time, when the whole camp was already asleep. Only sometimes did the guards shout to one another in the darkness of the night. The priestess approached the bonfire, quietly treading, and bowed low. I wanted to thank you for the help, O great one. My name is Pythagoras and this is my friend Hamilcar. Sit down beside us. Today we have something to talk about. My name is Asenath, the priestess said. We are also grateful to you, Asenath. The art of dance which you possess in perfection has shown us the great beauty of you as a soul, said Pythagoras. But why didn't the lion show aggression? Did you do that, Asenath? Are you Pythagoras? Asked Hamilcar. Your teacher helped me. I was able to do this on my own with any wild animal, but I would not have had enough strength to calm down this crowd of people who are not worthy of such a name yet. All forces of the universe obey your teacher, united with the deities. Do you know the nature of your strength, Asenath? Asked Pythagoras. The strength is given by the gods. Yes, you are right, but I would like to tell you about the divine energy which can be called by different names, but which is inherent in each evolutionarily developed person. And Pythagoras began to talk about the atmic energy Kundalini, which is accumulated for many earthly lives by a successfully developing soul in a sort of container, and then it can be used by the person in creativity and in advancing along the spiritual path. Both of you have already come to the present incarnations as very mature souls. Each of you has a huge reservoir of this energy, and moreover you are already using this energy unconsciously. This circumstance has allowed you, Asenath, to learn how to perform a dance in such a way that all spectators are flooded with your subtlest shining Kundalini. And you, Hamilcar, thanks to this stored potential, were able to preserve the purity and subtlety, despite the cruelty and energetical rudeness of some priests under whom you studied before. And now this energy allows you to master and perform many meditations at the level of the divine subtlety. Then Pythagoras explained to them how to work consciously with this priceless energy treasure. Within the next few days, a rest was declared in the camp as they were waiting for the arrival of another wagon train with valuables that should be attached to the caravan. Pythagoras proposed to Hamilcar that he take advantage of this time and share with Asenath everything that he had learned during the time of his study so far. Pythagoras just added a few words occasionally, observing his disciple with pleasure. When it was time to say goodbye, Pythagoras pronounced, "Well, now you, Asenath, will be able to teach many of those whom the gods will bring to you. We should all thank them for these opportunities that were given to us by the divine will during these days. God is a giver to all beings, but he is the acceptor of the gifts as well. From the big and small souls he accepts the gifts of love. These are the main sacrifices which the Creator needs. And when the soul finally matures, it gives itself as a gift to the Creator. This is a fruit worthy of cultivation in our earthly lives. The acceptance and giving should be in harmony between them, no matter what level of development each soul might have. This allows for the development of a soul. The acceptance is like an empty bowl which is ready to be filled. Afterwards, what was accumulated must be outpoured, donated, given to others. Only then can the bowl soul be filled again and perceive new heights of knowledge and skills. The soul which is not ready to give cannot be filled with new knowledge. The soul which is not ready to accept refuses to gain something that this soul could give away to others in the future. Also, it is necessary to accept the feasible aspirations to give from the small souls. The one who is not ready to accept the love and gratitude from them impedes the development of kindness in those souls, but accepting the gratitude from the small souls is not a reason at all to become proud of oneself. In particular, it is the giving of love to others that gradually makes the will of man to coincide with the will of God. Chapter 12. The pyramid is the fire from inside. Meditation of Thoth-the-Atlantean. Tell me, Hamilcar, what did you think when you saw the pyramids for the first time? I thought how great was the strength and wisdom of those who erected them. I also thought that these are qualities that I would like to develop. Great. Do you know that the word pyramid in my country's language sounds like fire from inside? What meaning do you think the Greeks put into this word? Nowadays, some people believe that the external radiance of the pyramids, which reflected the light of the sun, was the reason for this name. It is naive. Verily, the word pyramid itself keeps a secret. Now I am talking about the meditation pyramid of Thoth-the-Atlantean. This meditation has several levels of execution. At one time, the rites of initiation in these sacraments were held in the inner rooms of the main pyramid of Egypt. But the same thing can be done in the non-material pyramid, consisting of the light and directed from the energy of the developed soul by a disciple or by a divine teacher. So a pyramid is a temple for the initiation of the soul. The image of the pyramid allows one to penetrate into inner hidden chambers of the divine consciousness. Such a pyramid should be immense. When the consciousness consisting of light in the form of a pyramid rises above the surface of the earth, it is possible, having filled the top part of this form, to plunge through it into the depths. It is necessary to perform this in the divine subtlety. In such a way it is possible to grow the soul to the volumes comparable to at least the size of our planet. Moreover, it is possible to perceive the divine creative fire under the base of such a pyramid, and to dissolve in it by the soul, feeling its boundlessness. Many of these entries into the depths allow us to realize the successful growth of the soul. As a result, the beingness of the divine fire gradually becomes habitual. This fire is the one whole, united flame of souls who have attained the higher worlds. They are the masters of life who are working in the great unity. This fire can be raised, and then it fills the entire pyramid from within. It also can be brought into the body of the disciple. Feel deeply this reality. The souls may become huge, like a pyramid. Nevertheless, the pyramid created in the meditation rises only by a small part of itself above the surface of the earth. And its main part and foundation are in the depths, in the boundlessness of the creative fire. Over the course of time you will be able to cognize the divine fire above the planet, as well as the identity of that which is above and that which is below, by performing the meditation hidden in the symbol of the hexagram. The divine Thoth-the-Atlantean will help you to master this. I should also tell you that the form of a pyramid can be filled not only with the fire, but with the transparent calmness as well. These are two main states of the primordial consciousness. Now during the walk, Hamilcar was trying to retain himself in the new states and become established in them. In a few days, when almost everyone in the camp was already sleeping, another significant event took place. That evening Pythagoras and Hamilcar were talking about which gods of different nations are real and which ones are only the inventions of the priests or the characters of fairy tales and myths. The topic of the conversation was so interesting to Hamilcar that his questions did not end. And Hamilcar asked Pythagoras about Thoth-the-Atlantean. "You told me that the great Thoth-the-Atlantean is your teacher. Is it the same god Thoth who is highly esteemed in Egypt?" According to the legends, he was one of the Egyptian rulers in those ancient times when this country was governed by the gods. Yes, Thoth-the-Atlantean is one of those divine teachers who came into bodies from flesh and carried the knowledge about the highest to many nations. He is quite real. Thoth-the-Atlantean was one of the great divine mentors who were completing my education in the temples of Egypt. He was doing this in the body consisting of the great light, not using his material body. He revealed to me the knowledge which has been lost or has not been understood by the priests under whom I studied before. Like all the great ones, he is not bounded by a necessity of births and deaths in the circles of reincarnations. And they always remain in the eternal unity with the united divine consciousness. At this moment a stranger approached the bonfire. He passed very close through the guards, but they did not notice him. He was invisible to them. With a great respect, Pythagoras got up to greet the guest. Hamilcar followed his example. His body was not material, but was quite real. Gentle smile, imperturbable in the deepest calm, shining from his whole appearance. "Let me introduce you to my great teacher Thoth-the-Atlantean." Pythagoras introduced the guest. Hamilcar was amazed. Although the body of Thoth-the-Atlantean was non-material, it was perceived as a greater reality than anything else around. Thoth-the-Atlantean, seeing Hamilcar's interest in his appearance, started to explain, "In reality there is no such self-existent material world. All creation is created from completely mobile energies through their certain densification, allowing the objects to be manifested, to be perceivable by incarnate beings. Now my body is condensed enough, so it is convenient for you to see it. If I manifested a bit more condensed, then it will become perceivable to the guards as well, but this would be unnecessary. Embodied people usually have limited vision and are unable to see those energy structures which form the material world. Speaking in very general terms, microparticles which reside at the most densified state between themselves are perceived by ordinary human perception as solid objects. The substances from less strongly bound particles as liquids. And when particles are located even more freely like air invisible to the ordinary human eye. But beyond the range of perception by human senses is revealed a boundless multidimensional expanse. The soul can learn to see the great creative power and its creation at different levels of refinement. You are already familiar with the divine light and fire. When you become accustomed to them to a much greater extent, you will be able to observe everything created from the depths. And then you will cognize that everything existing in the whole universe is really the one whole living organism. Harmony is the main principle of the life of this organism. Any violations of this principle are considered as undesirable, and violators are at risk of becoming the unfulfilled elements of the whole. The radiant figures of divine men and women were approaching the bonfire. Thoth-the-Atlantean introduced his great friends to Hamilcar. Thoth is my companion at work in Egypt. He is one of those who also taught Pythagoras. Cairo is one of the divine rulers of Egypt in the ancient past. Imhotep is the great architect and sculptor, in addition to all his other skills. You, my friends, should pay special attention to his advice in the future. After bowing softly and majestically to Pythagoras and Hamilcar, Imhotep settled comfortably around the bonfire and continued, "Yes, the art is a kind of bridge between the divine and the material worlds. It is a convenient way for many people to convey knowledge to them. And many souls may pass over on this bridge. Creativity itself teaches the souls to be similar to the Creator who is creating everything in the universe. It is a creativity in the arts and sciences that can become a major transition stage in the development to a life on our level of beingness among us. I shall always help you when it is required." More and more divine teachers were approaching. Each of them had not only a corporeal appearance, but were also similar to the whole sea by the hugeness of oneself soul. Each one was bringing one's own radiant divine presence into the surrounding space. Hamilcar barely had time to perceive the slightly distinguishing features of the divine guests, the shades of light, the states of love, calmness, power, and majesty. When Hamilcar turned to Pythagoras, he saw that Pythagoras was the same as them, although he had an ordinary body from flesh. And then the radiance of the light became so significant that the material plane seemed to be washed away from Hamilcar's perception. He dissolved into the ocean of the light, consisting of many divine souls. Then Hamilcar heard the voice of Thoth-the-Atlantean. "This is a very beneficial experience for you, Hamilcar. In this way the souls who have attained the perfection usually abide in a mutually dissolved, merged state. They create their own forms only for deeds in more dense layers of the universe. You can learn to recognize them by these forms. There is a central divine fire of the earth, based in its core. This fire under ordinary conditions connects the core of the planet with the universal divine fire. You already know that the divine fire consists of them, the mutually merged ones. Those who have attained the mergence with the united divine we work on the earth, coming from this fire to incarnate beings. And this fire is their source of strength. You will be among them soon. Now you are getting access to the treasury of divine knowledge, whose bearers are those who have attained the perfection. Here you can gain any knowledge in any quantity. The only limitation is an ability to understand the answers. This knowledge is indestructible because it is preserved by the immortal souls, the bearers of this knowledge. Even when the history of this planet becomes a thing of the past in the history of the universe, the great ones who have worked here and who have cognized the unity will continue their work on other planets. So now feel your unity with the divine fire again. Indeed, this already became a reality canonized by you. Then become a source of the great flow of divine love and power. There is no longer room for your individual will. Only that which is not only offered by yourself, but also approved by all, can be realized. Now your destiny is unbreakably fastened with the great divine power. When a person reunites oneself soul, flaming huge in size like the sun, with the universal creative fire, then begins a new great stage on the path for the one who has attained divinity. What is behind these words? Every one of us acts from the united we. It is a great responsibility to be always the one who doesn't manifest a personal will, but the will of the united we. Hamilcar with difficulty returned to perception of the dense world where his body had remained. He would love to stay forever in the world of the divine love, calm, and light. Pythagoras consoled him, "You have already learned how to enter into the divine eons. These eons are always near us, just as all our divine teachers who are inhabiting them. But a person who has a body needs to develop the skills and a habit of always perceiving both worlds, the divine one from where he gets guidance, knowledge and strength, and the other material world. This is what we shall master in the near future. In the meantime you need a rest. You may be pleased that you have been accepted in the divine light as an equal, although you still have to work hard in order to have this as a durable achievement. You should know that, when you leave your body in the event of its death, the divine world which has been canonized by you will become the abode for you. This knowledge will add to your courage and fearlessness, joy and calm in the moment you face the death of your body whenever it approaches." Chapter 13. In Babylon. The caravan with captives and treasures had reached Babylon. All the mages and priests captured in Egypt and other kingdoms were placed in the several rooms that had exits to the courtyard with a small pond, flower gardens and several orange trees, but everything was isolated from the outside world by walls and was well protected by the guards. "However, our new dungeon is quite comfortable. I expected worse," Pythagoras said in response to the indignant exclamations of those priests who were not too happy about this place. Here many mages, diviners and healers taken captive previously were being held. Pythagoras was polite, but terse with them. He sometimes conducted long conversations about the movement of stars and planets with only one of them, the astronomer and mathematician, about the laws of the correlations expressed in numbers and formulas, about the geometric figures which can serve as the symbols of the infinite one. Hamilcar sometimes tried to delve into the subject of their conversations, but soon realized that his knowledge in these areas was not enough to dive into a deep understanding of what they were discussing. When he mentioned this with some chagrin to Pythagoras, he consoled Hamilcar. "Now it is not necessary for you to deeply understand the laws of movement of stars and the mathematical calculations. There is that main knowledge about the development of the soul and the divine laws of the whole that you are comprehending. Concentrate your efforts on the main subject, and all other knowledge will easily open up in front of you when there is a need for it." So their life went on peacefully in meditations and conversations. Meanwhile, external world events occurred one after another. The news from there, with some difficulty, was still able to reach the captives, and this news promised changes. King Cambyses, having moved deeper into the African continent, suffered several serious military defeats. Many of his warriors died from hunger, thirst and diseases. Meanwhile, discontent was growing and revolts were taking place in his overexpanded domain. The Median priest, Gaumata, began to impersonate Cambyses' brother, Bardia, who was killed by Cambyses. First he seized power in Media, and then he tried to subjugate other territories that were a part of the enormous kingdom conquered by the Persians, which began to fall apart. Cambyses hastily decided to terminate the invasion and come back to punish Gaumata. But soon the news about Cambyses' sudden death had come. There were various rumors about the wrath of the gods who punished Cambyses for the destruction of some sacred places and temples in the conquered lands. There were also rumors about the magic of Gaumata and the spear that was poisoned by conspirators, with which Cambyses accidentally wounded himself when he was getting in the saddle. One young Persian nobleman by the name of Darius, who had a kinship with Cyrus himself, Cambyses' father and creator of the Persian Empire, began to visit frequently the captive priests and mages. He was obviously searching for ways to dethrone Gaumata, and for this purpose he wanted to enlist the help of mages. He got bored with listening to the flattering predictions of the astrologers who promised him greatness and power over the whole world, and he proposed that all priests and mages show their skills. Darius observed these demonstrations of magical power with interest. For example, one of the priests easily made the slaves fall into a trance and caused them to follow any of his orders. Observing this, Hamilcar remembered the black mage whom he had once met. That mage had possessed a tremendous brutal power of influence over others. By his willpower he paralyzed and subjugated weaker souls, their will and ability to think. How easily they became slaves of his power. To control other people by magical power and take any advantage from it, that was the skill of that mage. At that time Hamilcar spent a lot of energy in order to escape from that man's tenacious and persistent attention. What this local priest was demonstrating here was only a pale comparison and more resembled a hypnosis. Another priest was showing Darius how to cause pain to the slave, who was at a distance without a weapon. Pythagoras was observing what was happening with silent disapproval, but not intervening, and that was kindling Darius's interest more and more. He had already heard from Pythagoras's companions about many cases of the manifestation of his power during the journey of the convoy with the captives from Egypt. A while after, Darius decided to get to know Hamilcar better. "You are smart and understand that I need strong and loyal people. You could become my ally. Your strength and knowledge could help me to ascend the throne. You are admired by the warriors just because of your giant athlete's appearance. In addition, they say that you are also the master of magic. A person like you would be invaluable next to the ruler, and I will not remain in debt." Gaumata is the half-educated mage who fraudulently came into power, and he is not worthy of it. You are right, Darius. Gaumata is not worthy of being a ruler. But there are different ways to win. Do you really want to come to power by means of murder? Or are you going to start using black magic against the same magic of evil? What will happen as a result? Do you really think that this can lead to good for yourself and all nations you dream of controlling? If we use the power of the soul on our own will in order to control other people, we deprive ourselves of the right for divine protection. Because only the gods have the right to determine the destinies of people to such an extent. In particular, they forbid people to make their own decisions about the disembodiment of others. Then Darius addressed Pythagoras. "Why are you silent, Pythagoras, when others strive to please me and become my assistants, so obviously showing up their skills? Tell me why you do not reveal your power. I have heard a lot about your might and about your ability to know the future. Tell me, shall I rule over Persia? Yes, it is very likely that you will ascend to the throne of the Persian kings, but it is not that important. What is really important is what kind of ruler you will be. I would like to show you neither the miracles nor a magical power, but the superiority of virtue over malevolence. I would also like to teach you how to become a great and wise ruler who is loved by his people and who is not a tyrant that keeps his people in fear. But how to teach someone who does not want to learn? Take the examples, Cambyses who just died, the king who was afraid of his brother's plot and ordered him to be killed. Cambyses had conquered so many kingdoms, having killed, maimed, and deprived many people of their property. But he died devoid of power and did not even enjoy the fruits of his victories. Is this not a vivid example of how evil begets evil? So everything that a person has done in life comes back to him, to his fate as a reward for all his deeds. But you came to me, hoping to find strength to defeat Mage Gaumata. You gather the comrades in arms for plotting and murder. That's why in the meantime, I shall wait with the hope that maybe someday my turn will come to teach you about righteousness. Darius was coming more often and was listening to Pythagoras, showing an obvious interest when Pythagoras was speaking about the strength and possibilities of a man. But again and again Darius was only inquiring about how to achieve power. I want to be a great ruler. The great ones know their goals and do not stop at anything. Even the lost lives of their people on this path is not an obstacle for them. The examples of all successful earthly rulers demonstrate this. It is impossible to control the nations only with peace and kindness. Great governors should possess great strength. Those governors you talk about are not great, but just primitively self-centered and power-loving people. They could be more or less kind and fair, or, on the contrary, malicious and cruel, but all of them continue to be mistaken, not knowing the truth. And their goals are not great at all, although they seem to be such for them. They only dream of possessing and commanding the people. But who can actually be called great one? Only the one who lives, coming out from the heart of the earth, and keeps on his divine hands all living things, feeling every creature on the fingertips of a myriad of hands of the one whole. Truly great ones have connected their greatness with the boundlessness of the whole, with the force that rules the whole universe. They already possess everything, and they have no need for worship, glory or earthly wealth. And they govern the people wisely, if the destiny sent by the divine source puts them at the head of kingdoms. Darius did not accept what Pythagoras was trying to teach him, but he could if he wished. You are incorrigible in your naivety, O Pythagoras. I don't understand how your knowledge is able to get along with unrealistic, utopian dreams. Bless me, O Great One, for my small deeds, because I am only going to conquer that world which opens up in front of me here, on the earth. That is what you are dreaming of, Darius. It is your strong power over people, worship to you honors, but your power could become not only strong but wise as well. Divine teachers of humanity are helping us to realize only the deeds of harmony and goodness. They are looking for those devotees who aspire to unite their own love with universal love. They gradually give such a hero of the spirit an opportunity to perceive the divine power and merge with it. You are familiar with the teaching of the sage Zoroaster. In its foundation it could unite many nations, because it teaches about the one divine source, God the creator of everything, God of wisdom, God of goodness, God perceived in the form of the divine fire. The need for observance of kindness, lawfulness, justice is also prescribed in this teaching. Why do you not want yourself to follow the best parts about this teaching? During several months Hamilcar and Pythagoras continued their attempts to interest Darius in the ideas of a spiritual transformation of society that only the two of them spoke about before. But Darius one day ignited in delight about the dream of enlightenment and implementation of ideas of morality. Then another day becoming gloomy from his own thoughts about the mismatch of what Pythagoras was teaching with what Darius so passionately desired. Chapter 14. The end of Hamilcar's apprenticeship. Pythagoras and Hamilcar were released and given freedom by Darius, who had ascended to the throne. Darius said to Pythagoras at parting, "Now I am the king. I will conquer the whole world, but first I will let you follow your path. Why do you let me and my friend go now? If I listen to you further, I will not be able to accomplish my plans. Take everything that you need. I will command that all your orders be fulfilled. I shall provide ships, oarsmen and everything necessary. You and your disciple are no longer captives. You can choose where to direct your path." In the bay of the city of Tyre, 2 ships ready to set sail were waiting for an order to go. On the shore, 2 people were standing, Pythagoras and his disciple Hamilcar. Pythagoras pronounced, "Yes, if Darius became our disciple, many things would change in the history of the earth. but there is a freedom of will for every soul. And even seeing the failure of all the grandeur of possible achievements, it is not allowed to force another soul to make a right choice. I would like to go together with you now, Pythagoras, and to be your assistant in everything. I would like this too, Hamilcar. But the higher will is different. Now you yourself will begin to realize everything that we have planned in your country. Understand, my friend, that the availability of this knowledge for so many people also depends on you too. If each of us begins to do this in his own land, we can achieve more than if we start acting together in one place. Go ahead, Hamilcar. We will be next to each other all the time, although our bodies are at a distance. The aspirations of our thoughts and deeds will be united. Create for the humanity on the earth that which we have been entrusted with. And no, our efforts will not be in vain. Those non-incarnate teachers whom you know now, and even those whom you do not know yet, will assist you fully. In the world of darkness, war and moral decay, you should glorify truth, beauty, and righteousness, making them desired. And you should determine the perfection of a soul in the mergence with the Creator is the purpose of life for every human being. Yes, it will not be easy to talk about righteousness when even the so-called gods of many nations easily commit crimes in their legends, strive to dominate one another, fight, kill, betray, punish people at their whim. But that is why it is vital for humanity, and we have to tell them. You will lead your disciples from a small space of cordial quietness, where God becomes evident, to the great boundless transparent calm, and to the divine fire in which the individual I merges into the united we, the oneness of all the perfects. There are immutable laws of life for the initiated ones. They no longer lie for themselves. They no longer perceive what is happening to them from the point of view of the individual human I. They live here in bodies for the purpose of performing the will of the primordial, for the perfection of the souls, so that the wisdom, love, and beauty of the divine consciousness can appear to the people. They always look at what is happening from the unity with the primordial one. They resort to force only in full accordance with his will. They are ready to accept the death of their bodies for his sake. They do not use that force with which they live in unity to save their own bodies. They are always ready to completely leave the world of matter and go to the divine light, but they remain here among people only for the sake of bearing the gifts of divine knowledge to the people. You can learn to live this way all the time from the unity already canonized by you. Good luck to you, my true friend. Good luck to you, Hamilcar from Carthage. I do not say goodbye, because that unity of those who have attained the perfection is indissoluble by the earthly distances. The one in whom the creative fire of the divine love is burning inextinguishably cannot be separated any more from the one whole. And that's not all. Our experts and regular viewers respond to all comments. Also check if you forgot to subscribe and set your bell to receive notifications about new audiobooks and other useful self-development materials that we release regularly. Join in the discussions, don't forget to give likes and, if possible and inspired, support the development of the channel financially. All useful links will be in the description and the first attached comment. Goodness, love and wisdom to all. And now move on to watch the next part of the video at the links below, or choose something from the playlists of the channel and those you see on the screen.